Good morning. It is Thursday, March 6th, 2025. This is Landon Blake, ruggedly handsome Lance Surveyor extraordinaire, doing a truck brain dump this morning. My second one for the commute, 6:40. Already started my second brain dump. I am doing this brain dump for Cosette and Britt. They know who they are. They asked me to teach them a little bit about records of survey. So I want to try and do that. I was hoping to do some videos. Man, I've just been too busy. So I wanted to try and take advantage of some of my commute time to get this done for them. I may do a couple videos because there may be some things I want to show on the whiteboard, but I'm going to do, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 brain dumps here probably on my commute so I can get those two young ladies some of the information that they've asked me for. So I'm sorry you don't get to see my handsome face. It's going to be audio only. Next couple of these will be audio only, but maybe that'll work out for Britt. She'll be able to listen to these on her commute. All right, so we're going to talk about records of survey. In this first brain dump, what I want to do is just give you a big picture. What is a record of survey? Why do we do them? And who tells us the rules? Where are the rules that we have to follow when we do a record of survey? There's some rules. We have to follow them. So where are those rules? Who made the rules? Why did the rules get made? So kind of big picture in this brain dump, not deeply technical. We'll get into some of the technical stuff. But I think Britt and Cosette wanted a more conceptual overview. They wanted to understand how records of survey fit into the big picture. We do a lot of them at our shop, at RH. We do a lot of records of survey. I don't know how many we do a year, a bunch. It's more than 10. And so that makes us, for a shop our size, that makes us unusual. We do a record of survey for every employee in the company, probably, if you want to look at it that way. Okay. So a record of survey map, sometimes we call them an ROS, is an official record of a survey that we have performed. So the meaning is a little bit implicit in the name. So we call it record of survey, but it's really a record of a survey. That's been shortened to record of survey, but it is a record of a survey. It is an official record of a survey that we've performed that gets filed with the county for the rest of human history, essentially, until we're wiped out by a plague or a nuclear war. That's basically it. That's what it is. Okay, we do records of survey for 2 reasons. The first reason is we have a sophisticated client or a client that has taken our advice and they have agreed that if they're going to spend the money on a boundary survey or control survey, that they would like that survey to be permanently monumented, and they want an official copy of their survey recorded at the county because that puts the rest of the world on notice. And there's some legal protections that come from that, and it helps protect your land title. And so sometimes we have a client that just is smart enough to say, you know what, if I'm paying $15,000 for a boundary survey, I'm going to pay another $3,000 or $4,000 and have you guys memorialize it permanently in the public record. So that's the ideal scenario. That's when we like to do them, right? The client sees the value and they're paying us to memorialize what we've done. That doesn't happen very often. I would say that maybe 1 out of 20. All right. What's the other reason we do them? The other reason we do them is because the California state government puts a gun to my head as a licensed professional land surveyor and says, if you hit these 3 to 5 triggers that are defined under the law, you shall file a record of survey in the county that you have performed your survey in, whether you want to or not, period, full stop. It is an unfunded government mandate that I am subject to as a professional licensed land surveyor in the state of California. If I meet certain conditions, this is during a field survey, so there has to be a field survey. But if we perform a field survey and I find certain things, I have to file a record of survey by state law. Doesn't matter if the client doesn't want me to, doesn't matter if the client doesn't want to pay for it, doesn't matter if we don't have time. None of that matters. Under state law, if I hit certain triggers when I do a field survey, I have to file as a licensed professional. That's why we do 90 to 95% of our records of survey, because I have to. It's a requirement. It's an unfunded government mandate that we have to meet. Now, you can tell I get a little bit sultry about that. I get a little bit sassy because I don't like having the government with a gun to my head, but it's the way the law works, and I know that. And I think the law had good intentions. They start out with good intentions, and then over time, they become abused in a nightmare. Let me explain why I think the law originally got passed. The reason that law exists is because surveyors in California at one point early in our state history came to the conclusion that the public was benefited from having a record of surveys that establish boundaries at the county level. They felt that benefit to the public was great enough to impose the cost of performing a survey on licensed land surveyors in this state. I think the law, as it was originally written and intended, was a good law. I think that those surveyors were right. I think that the trade-off is worth it if the law is properly implemented. To help future land surveyors and landowners is worth it. It's worth the cost. It's worth the trade-off. There's a cost to putting seatbelts in every car that's sold in America. But we have decided as a society that the lives we save is worth that cost of putting a seatbelt in every car. Cars would be cheaper if they didn't have seatbelts, but more people would die in car accidents. We've decided as a society to make that trade-off, and we don't give car makers a choice. If you want to sell cars in America, you have to pay to put seatbelts in them. And we have a law that says you have to wear your seatbelt, right? We do that for the greater public good. So the record of survey laws work the same way. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds on it in this truck brain dump, but what's happened is that law has been abused by county surveyors. It's just human nature. And it's become, I don't know anymore that the cost we impose is worth the benefit, especially because it creates some very unhealthy incentives where people that break the law stay in business and people that try and follow the law go out of business. So at some point, the law almost has the opposite effect of what the intent was. But we'll save that for another truck brain dump. So that's why we file them. We file them on a rare occasion because we have a good client that understands having a official copy of their survey at the county offers some protection and some value. But most of the time we're doing it because I've hit a trigger during a field survey under state law and the government says I have to. We cannot do a record of survey on 8.5 by 11 sheets. We can't do a record of survey in full color. We can't do a record of survey without a 1-inch margin. All of those rules are in what they call the California Professional Land Surveyors Act. That is a part of what they call the Business and Professions Code, California. So most of, for example, the rules about what has to be on your survey is in section 8764 of the Business and Professions Code. The triggers that require a record of survey are in section 8762 of the Business and Professions Code. And yes, I have those sections memorized. Why do I have them memorized? Because I fight with county surveyors about them all the time. So you too, as a land surveyor at RH, will become intimately familiar with the contents of those sections of the California Professional Land Surveyors Act. But that's where the rules are. There actually aren't very many rules. It's only a few pages. 3 or 4 or 5 pages. It's not very much, and they're small pages. So that's one of the reasons why I argue with county surveyors is because they try and make me do a bunch of stuff that's not in the rules. So that's basically it. So now you have a better understanding of the big picture for record of survey maps. I will let you know that not all states have a record of survey requirement. Many states do, but there are states that don't have a public filing act or a map filing requirement. There are many states, especially on the East Coast, that don't have that. So they do not have a record of survey requirement, but our state does. There are also states like Nevada, where I'm licensed, that require you to file a record of survey, but there's no map review by the county. So you just take your map down to the recorders, which I actually think is a better system. So there are some variation across the United States, but that's how it works here in California. All right, next brain dump. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2 or 3 basic types of records of survey that you see in California and how they're different and what type of information goes on each survey. I think that'd be helpful for Britt and for Cosette. I hope these recordings help them understand a little bit more of why we're doing records of survey, why we do so many of them, where in the law we're told what we have to do for those kinds of maps. So thanks for listening.